Greetings, Commanders. I'm Commander Gypsum, and today we're doing a face-off. We've got the Fer-de-Lance versus the Python. Now, I see a lot of comments usually on Reddit saying, what do I get, the Fer-de-Lance or the Python? And it's usually in the Elite Bounty Hunters subreddit. So I kind of wanted to do a video response here to show you how the Fer-de-Lance handles and how the Python handles in a hazardous resource extraction site. So let's get to it, and we're going to start with the Python. Alright, so we're on the outfitting screen, and we're just going to go through what I'm putting on here. I'm going with A6 power plant, because we just don't need a 7. We're going with A6 thrusters, A6 frameshift drive, Delta 4 life support, Alpha 7 power distributor, Delta 6 sensors, standard fuel tank, A6 shield generator, an A6 shield cell bank, a second A6 shield cell bank, and a fuel scoop. And we are putting on a planetary vehicle hangar, and we could put in some cargo, but we're kind of skipping that for this. For hard points, we're going with dual large pulse lasers. On the bottom, a large cannon, and 2 medium pulse lasers. And we're putting on 2 heat sinks. We need those for our shield cell banks. We're going with a Class C kill warrant scanner for 3 kilometers and an A shield booster. Now for our fire groups, we're putting all of our pulse lasers into fire group 1 on the first trigger, and the cannon on the secondary trigger. And our secondary fire group, we're putting the advanced discovery scanner and kill warrant scanner on 2 separate triggers, of course. Now we head over to our module to do our power supply here, and we do have to move a couple things around here to make sure that we get all of our weapons powered up and everything shuts off that we don't need while we're fighting. So it looks like we're good to go here. Now moving on to the Fer-de-Lance. We're going to go over the internals here, lightweight alloys, A6 power plant, A5 thrusters, an A4 frameshift drive, Delta 4 life support, A6 power distributor, Delta 4 sensors, standard fuel tank, A5 shield generator, an A4 shield cell bank, A4 fuel scoop, and a planetary vehicle hangar, and advanced discovery scanner. I like to put those on because I like a well-rounded ship. We're going with a huge cannon on the bottom, and we're going with gimbaled pulse lasers for our mediums. We're doing all 4 here. Going with a Class C kill warrant scanner for the 3 kilometer range, and the rest is all shield boosters. Now if you notice, the cannon is fixed. That way we do some extra damage with it, because gimbal kind of nerfs the damage here a little bit. Now moving on to our fire groups, we're putting all the pulse lasers and fire group 1 on the first trigger and cannon on the secondary trigger. And we're putting the advanced discovery scanner and the kill warrant scanner in the secondary fire group. Alright, so now we're moving on to our power priority management. Now we don't really have to do a whole lot with this because now the Fer-de-Lance has an A6 power plant, so we don't really have to do very much management here. As you can see, we're going to be able to deploy our weapons and be good to go with all of our secondary systems shutting off. And yeah, we're going to be good to go here. What am I missing? There we go. That looks better. Alright, so let's get to the hunt. Alright, so as you can see, we've got a straight head-to-head here. We've got the Python on the left and the Fer-de-Lance on the right. So what I've done is I set a timer on my phone for 30 minutes, and we're going to see how many bounties they can rack up each in that 30 minutes. Now this isn't going to be a perfect comparison because of the RNG for what will spawn in a resource extraction site. Now we are in a hazardous resource extraction site, so we should get a lot of activity, but that's not always guaranteed, and one ship might get a little bit better RNG roll than the other ship. So not a perfect comparison, but I think you'll get a pretty good idea of how each handles themselves inside of a Haz-Res. Alright, so we should first talk about pricing, I think. And I think that's why they get compared a lot, is because they have a relatively close price. The Python starts out at about 56 or maybe 57 million, and that's the full price. You can get a little bit cheaper if you go to the right territories. And the Fer-de-Lance starts out at about 51 or 52 million, and again, you can get that a little bit cheaper elsewhere, but that is the base prices, so I think that's why the two get compared a lot. Now, that's going to change a lot once you start outfitting it. The Python is going to be more expensive. The way that the ships are outfitted right now, the Python comes in at about 124 million fully outfitted, compared to the Fer-de-Lance at 83 million fully outfitted. Now that's going to cost a little bit more if you put on some military grade bulkheads, which I didn't do this time because it drops down your jump range so far. But let's say that you do put on some military grade bulkheads. That's going to build up the Fer-de-Lance price to about 125 million, and it's going to bump up the Python price to 170 million. So that is a pretty big difference between them. We're talking 50, 60 million difference depending on your outfitting. So the Python is quite a bit more. Now, with those military grade bulkheads on, your jump range is going to go way down. The Python takes a fairly big hit, goes down to 14.87 light years with this build, which is not great, but that's something that you can live with, I think. And the Fer-de-Lance gets dropped down to 11.85, and that is just horrendous. That's like the jump range of the Corvette, and that's horrendous as well. So you definitely have to take that into consideration. I don't usually put on the military grade composites. They are worth it, don't get me wrong. For the price, they are definitely worth it. But the jump range and the weight takes such a big hit, I don't usually do it, because I usually move around a lot. I like to do planetary landings. I'm always changing systems, so I usually forego putting on those kind of extras that's going to tie me down. So the next thing I think we'd want to talk about is the types of ships that they are. Now, even though they're in kind of the same price bracket, relatively, they are very different ships. The Python is considered a multi-role ship, which means you can use it as a trader, you can use it as a fighter. It can do anything. It's got tons of internals, so you can really stack in a bunch of cargo racks or hull reinforcement packages, and it can do just about anything. That's the definition of multi-role. And it used to be a very popular ship for PvP before 1.5, and people would do a lot of SCB stacking, but I don't think that's really a thing anymore, because now you need heat sinks to go along with your SCBs. Not always, but with the big ones you do. So like on the Fer-de-Lance, we put in a class 4 SCB, and we can get away with not using a heatsink with that, as long as we're not taxing the ship too much already. And on the Python, we did put in those two large class 6 SCBs that we use at the same time to bump our shields basically up to full again. But those do require heat sinks, one for each. So you definitely have to keep that in mind so you don't fry your ship trying to use SCBs without your heat sinks. Now, the Fer-de-Lance, on the other hand, is a dedicated fighter. It's what it does. I would compare it to, like, I'd say it's the Viper's big brother. It handles a lot like the Viper. It's fast. It doesn't turn so great. At least it didn't turn so great before 1.5. But then they did give it a little bit of a pitch boost with 1.5. So now I would say that it's very comparable to the Viper, and maybe not quite as good as the Federal Assault Ship, and definitely not as good as the Vulture. But it is a very good fighter, and if you're interested in just fighting, man, the Fer-de-Lance is an excellent ship. It's hard to find a better ship for the price than the Fer-de-Lance. Now, the Vulture, of course, has always been, in my opinion, the king of the res. But recently, if you've been watching any of my videos, you might have seen my Federal Assault Ship video that I did around Christmas time. And I think the Federal Assault Ship just might be the king of the res now. So if you're looking for, the ship to get for RES bounty hunting, look no further than the Federal Assault Ship. It really is just a fantastic vessel. Yes, you do need to get some rank in the Federation Navy to get it, but I'd say it's definitely worth it. But if you are anti-fed or you just don't want to grind out that rank, the Fer-de-Lance is an excellent ship. You definitely has more options than the Vulture, and now that it has that A6 power plant, you do have a lot more outfitting options than you did before. Before it was brutal. You could either use a class 4 weapon, or SCBs, or shield boosters. You really had to be very, very choosy, so it is nice that they bumped it up for the Fer-de-Lance. I think it needed it. It's supposed to be a premium ship, and now it feels more like a premium ship. Alright, so let's talk some pros and cons, and we'll start with the Python first. Let's start with the pros. The pros, the Python's hardpoint placement is superb. I don't think it really gets much better than that, and the hardpoint composition, man, for a multi-role ship, this really has the weapons loadout of a dedicated fighter. You get 2 large, 2 medium, and they're both right on top of the ship. And of course that's great with the style of fighting that we do here in Elite Dangerous, with the dog fighting, because usually you're pitching, so you're kind of always pitching up towards your target. And with those hard points on the top of the ship, you do have a lot better firing arc because of those hard point placements. They're just phenomenal. There's no two ways about it. 2 large, 2 medium pulse just does so much damage. It can take out small ships almost instantly, and it can really do a lot of damage on a large ship just right off the bat. And it's got the power distributor to handle it as well, so you really do get a long firing time as well with the pulse weapons. And I have that cannon slung underneath, and the cannon doesn't require a lot of power, and it's just stuck just right on the nose of the ship. So you can really get shots in very easily, and it's just fantastic placement. You really can't ask for better placement than on the Python. It's just amazing. Now another big pro for the Python is its power plant and power distributor. You can get a class 7 power plant on the Python, which is huge. You can fit all kinds of stuff on your ship and never have to worry about going over on your power outages unless you're going with a very extreme Alpha Strike package, like triple plasma accelerator or something like that. And even then, you really just have to make just some small sacrifices, and you can make it work. That's just fantastic for the Python. For the price point, you get a class 7 power plant and a class 7 power distributor. That's just crazy. Just crazy. Now moving on to the cons of the Python. The first one, I'd say maybe price, because it does get fairly expensive. I mean, 170 million is nothing to sneeze at. And if you do get blown up, you're looking at a rebuy cost of about 8 million, and that can really hit the bank kind of hard there if you end up exploding, putting out 8 million. I mean, the Python's really good in an RES, so I mean, you're going to make that money back, but still, it's kind of a big hit to take. Now, the second con for the Python, I would say, is the shape of the vessel. How about that? Now, it's the wedge shape, and it's very flat, which is good when you're going dead on. But as soon as you start pitching, if they can get the right line on you, you're basically just a big flat plate. And you don't need gimbals or anything like that to hit the side of a Python. It's like the side of the farm door, right? It's just enormous. So that kind of brings to the third con of the Python, and that is its handling. Now, if you look at the agility, it does have a 6 out of 10, but I wouldn't put much faith into that number. Now, when the Python first came out with Elite Dangerous, the pitch rate and the maneuvering was really good. It was just a fantastic ship. A lot of people complained that it was OP, and it was just, the ship to go to. So it ended up getting nerfed. So the maneuverability is down, the pitch rate is down. So it kind of handles like a cow now. So basically FA off is required. You are going to need to use FA off to make some of these turns if you're in a dogfight. Now, if you're perfectly comfortable with FA off, then I think this is something that you can live with. It's not a lively ship, that's for sure. You can see sometimes the Anaconda will even kind of squirrel away from it. But for the right pilot, once you get used to the handling, I think that's something you can overcome. But beware though, if you're coming from a Vulture, it is going to feel like you're now driving around a station wagon compared to a Ducati. So that's definitely something you have to keep in mind. I think that just about covers up the Python mostly. So let's talk about the Fer-de-Lance, the pros and cons. I'd say the first pro would be the shields. The Fer-de-Lance just has amazing shields. They're just phenomenal. For a medium class fighter, you can get your shields up into the 900 megajoule range. Now that's where you start getting close to like the Anaconda and the Corvette or the Cutter. You know, you're getting very close into that kind of shield strength, and the Fer-de-Lance can really just take a lot of damage, and you don't need to pop an SCB. So that's I think I would say that's its biggest strength. It's just got phenomenal shields. The second big pro is the speed. The Fer-de-Lance is very fast, and it stays fairly fast. You're boosting it up around 400 meters per second, and when you're just doing regular dogfighting, you're still in the triple digits. You're still around 100, 140 meters per second while dogfighting, which is fantastic. Now, I wasn't going to label that as a con for the Python, because the Python is a little bit slow, but it's a multi-role. You know, it's not supposed to be a speed demon. Where the Fer-de-Lance is very fast. Not as fast as a Viper, of course, or a Cobra Mark III, but for the ship class, it's a very fast ship. I'd say that's a huge pro as well. So another pro for the Fer-de-Lance, I would say, is the price. I think the price is pretty good for what you get for this ship. Now, fully decked out is going to be around 80 million, and of course it's going to be a little bit more when you stick on military grade, which basically bumps it up to almost 130, but I think that's still a really good price for what you get. Now, like I said with those shields, you're now competing with ships that cost 400 or 500 million credits. So getting that kind of shields on a ship that's 83 million, I'd call that a bargain. And with the 4 medium hard points plus a huge, it's really good. Speaking of, another pro for the Fer-de-Lance is its utility points. The Fer-de-Lance gets 6 utility points, which is, again, very close to the Anaconda and the Corvette. So you can stick on just shield boosters for days on this thing. You can stick on 5 shield boosters plus a kill run scanner. So you can just get 200% extra shields because it's got so many utility slots. It's really just amazing. And yeah, it's just a dedicated fighter. It looks really good. I think that probably sums up all the pros. I would say on a set aside, you can get a class 4 hardpoint underneath the Fer-de-Lance. That is kind of cool. You can get a class 4 plasma accelerator or a class 4 cannon, and they do come in handy, but I don't know if I'd stick it on the pro list. Now eventually we're supposed to be getting more class 4 weapons, and once we get some more class 4 choices, I think this is going to be a bigger deal. But as for now, it's kind of just like a gimmick. It's a nice thing. It's a nice thing to have, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's a make or break. But that's just my opinion. Maybe some of you guys love the class 4 plasma or class 4 cannon, and that's great. You know, if you love it, get more of it. Yeah, I think that about sums up all my big pros for the Fer-de-Lance. So moving on to the cons, I'd say the first con of the Fer-de-Lance is the internal compartments. Now I understand that it's a dedicated fighter, so it's not going to have great internal compartments, but still, it's a little bit rough. You can't fit everything you want inside of a Fer-de-Lance. What I would like inside of a fighter is a fuel scoop, a shield cell bank, a small cargo rack, a planetary vehicle hangar, and an advanced discovery scanner. And of course shield generator, but I'm not going to put that on this because that's an obvious. And with the Fer-de-Lance, you're not going to get all of that. You're going to have to sacrifice something. So then it just comes down to whatever your priority is. Now I like to move around a lot, so I put a fuel scoop on. And I like to land on the planets, so I put a planetary vehicle hangar on. But now I don't have room for cargo. Which isn't a huge deal, because you're not going to be hauling around a lot of cargo with the Fer-de-Lance. Because, hey, it's a dedicated fighter. Why are you trying to haul around cargo? But, if you're going to be driving around the planet and you come across something cool on the surface, and you're like, ooh, I want to scoop that up. You scoop it up, you bring it back to the ship, and if you don't have a cargo rack, you can't bring it onto the ship. You've got to eject it before you can put your SRV back into the ship, which sucks. So basically, you can have a planetary vehicle hangar, but you're not going to be able to pick up anything on the surface and take it with you. Now you can, if you want to get rid of your shield cell bank, because that's not required, put in a cargo rack, but then there's no SCBs, so it's kind of a tricky dance with the Fer-de-Lance. I didn't mean to make that rhyme. Oh boy. But yeah, so you have to be more picky. You can't just put everything you want in there like you can with, say, the Python. So I would put that in the pro. In the con. Even though I understand, it's a dedicated fighter, and you're not going to be able to put, everything in the kitchen sink in it. Now, besides the internals, that's really about it for the cons. After that, you just start to get nitpicky, I suppose. Like, if I wanted to really start to get nitpicky, I'd say the power distributor is not great. It's a class 6, which in theory is good, but if you start firing all 4 of your medium pulse lasers, it drains the capacitor fairly quickly. And if you put a plasma accelerator in the class 4, that's going to eat up a lot of power as well. So you're going to have to be doing some downtime between firing the plasma accelerator and your pulse lasers. So that's kind of a pain, I suppose. You can mitigate that a little bit. Like, I've done a build before where I did a large pulse laser inside of the huge slot, and then 2 pulse lasers in the medium, and then 2 multi-cannons with the other 2 medium. And that could definitely let you do some more DPS, even though your capacitor gets down low. Because once their shields are down, you can switch over to the multis and start doing whole damage. And your capacitor will just recharge while you're using the multis, and you go right back again to the pulse. So you can mitigate that pulse laser drain or power drain for the capacitor with a little bit of variety in your medium class. But I don't like to take a lot of projectiles with me in an RES. Because for me, if I go RES hunting, I want to stay there for an hour, maybe 2 hours, and just keep on fighting. I like to do just chain dogfighting. Just one after the other, after the other, after the other, and just kind of lose yourself to the fight, and just kind of zen out. But, that's me. Maybe you just want to go out for a half hour, and if that's your game, just going out for a half hour, you can put all kinds of projectiles on there. And then once you run out, you head back to the station, replenish, rearm, and head back out again. So that's really just personal preference. For me, I like to use pulse weapons for the most part, because I just like to stay out for extended periods of time. Yeah, so that's kind of a hit or miss, however you feel about it. Another nitpicky thing would be maybe the handling. It is a lot better with 1.5. 1.4, it would drift a lot. It would drift considerably. And that really put me off the Fer-de-Lance. That with the ridiculous jump range. But we've already talked about that. Just a terrible, terrible jump range. So, yeah, the skidding around and the terrible jump range, I just put the Fer-de-Lance basically in the hangar and kept it there for a long time. But now with the 1.5 bump, it does maneuver way better. You can definitely stay in close with like the Anacondas or the Clippers and just do a lot of damage while you can stay out of their firing arc for the most part. So yeah, that's just nitpicky right there. And I'd say maybe the final nitpicky thing is that stupid crossbar in the canopy going right over your field of view. Man, that used to drive me bananas. Now the Python kind of has something like that as well. You can kind of see that on the top left. The Python has like this chunk of metal right there. But that you can kind of ignore. But that crossbar in the canopy, man, that's annoying. Now, if you're using like the ED head tracker or something like that, I guess it's just called, what's it called? ED tracker? I can't think of what it's called now. But if you use something like that, it's not such a big deal because you're moving your head around and you kind of see around that canopy bar. Or if maybe you're in the Oculus or something like that, it's not such a big deal because you're moving your head around. But if you're just being lazy and put on just your fixed canopy view, that canopy bar can be annoying. Now that is something that I've kind of just phased out for myself. I don't really even see it anymore, so that doesn't really bug me. And I know some of my fellow Americans don't like sitting on the right side of the ship. But that doesn't bug me either, because right now I'm living in Japan, so I've gotten used to being on the right side of a vehicle. So yeah, that doesn't bother me at all. But, you know, I don't think a lot of people complain about the Python sitting on the left-hand side, or the Cobra on the left-hand side. People will say, you know, I want to be in the middle, like the Vulture. You know, and that's fantastic, sure. But, I don't know, I wouldn't really put that in the con category for me personally, but I guess that's just up to the user. So if that's something that just drives you nuts, yeah, that sucks, I'm sorry. So I think that pretty much covers my big pros and cons with the Python and the Fer-de-Lance. They're both excellent ships, and if you give them a chance, I think you're going to be pleased with what you find. Now, a lot of the times you do have to adapt your playstyle, especially with the Python, because if you're coming from a small ship, like say the Courier or the Vulture or something like that, the Python is going to feel like a whale, it really does. And I remember when I first got the Python after the Vulture, I felt the same way. I thought it was just a huge tub, and I was so excited to get the Python, and then I was so disappointed with the way that it handles. I ended up going back to the Vulture for a very long time. But the Python, once you get used to the flight style, I think you'll like it as well. Now for me, I've been in the Anaconda for a very long time, so I've gotten used to the big ships and how they fly, and you know, you have to use FA off, you have to use your thrusters. So, you know, I've definitely gotten used to the Python now, due to flying around the Anaconda. So now the Python just feels fine. I don't think it feels like too much like a tub anymore. You definitely can get frustrated when you're fighting something like the Anaconda and it's constantly doing boost turns, and it gets out, say, 2 kilometers away, and now you have to close in to get back into the combat. Where when you're flying like the Vulture or something like that, that's never a concern. You can just basically attach yourself to the hull of the Anaconda and just keep on firing, and it just doesn't stand a chance. So that's definitely something you have to think about. Where the Fer-de-Lance, you know, maybe that's not such a big issue, especially now after the 1.5 patch. It's rather spry, you know, it does drift around a little bit, and you do have to use FA off once in a while, but it handles pretty well. I think in the handling department, it's pretty good. Now they both have a 6 out of a 10 for agility, but again, I wouldn't put too much faith into those numbers at all. Like, you know, the Anaconda, it has an agility of 2. So on paper, the Anaconda is terrible. But once you get into the Anaconda and you start feeling the Anaconda's agility and you learn how to fly it, you can really make that ship dance. So yeah, don't put too much faith into those numbers for agility. It doesn't mean a whole lot. Another good indicator of the agility not meaning too much. Another case in point is the Aft Scout. It has an agility of 8 out of 10, which sounds fantastic, right? I mean, the Vulture has a 9 out of 10. The Eagle, 10 out of 10, right? So you'd think the Aft Scout, hey, that's going to be pretty good, 8 out of 10. So I actually did a bunch of different outfitting for the Aft Scout, trying to make it a good RES hunter, but it's not a good RES hunter. Oh man, but that's the subject for a different video. It's just, yeah, not that agile, even though it says 8 out of 10. So another reason you don't pay attention to that stupid agility score is the Federal Corvette. It says it has an agility of 2 out of 10, just like the Anaconda. But the Federal Corvette, that thing has a pitch rate, you know, that would make the pilot and crew vomit every time it goes on deployment, because it can pitch like crazy. It is like a large dogfighter. But it's got an agility of 2 out of 10. Don't pay attention to the agility ratings. And just, okay, last one, promise. Last one for agility. Imperial Cutter. Now, I don't have the rank to buy this in-game, so I only played it on the beta. The Cutter has an agility of 2 out of 10. And that thing is a whale. It turns like a beached whale. It is ridiculous. It is not a fighter. It is a trader. It's not even a multi-role. It's a trader. I tried to do bounty hunting with it, and you can do it. No, you can do it, but it is not fun. You know, it's not spry. It's not agile. It's a huge whale, a huge space whale. So yeah, that's my final soapbox moment here, talking about agility scores. So we've talked pros and cons. And we talked about agility and preferences and loadouts. So maybe we should give a little bit of time to alternatives. So let's say you were looking at the Python or the Fer-de-Lance, and after watching this video, watching how they perform, you're thinking, well, maybe I don't want a Python or Fer-de-Lance. Maybe I want something else. So let's talk about alternatives for a little bit. So the first obvious choice is the Vulture. The Vulture is just a fantastic dogfighter, 2 large bolts, strong shields. You can just stay out there for days, and it's just a fantastic vessel. So that would be absolutely my first pick. If you're looking to get into bounty hunting, the Vulture is where it's at. If you've got some extra money and some extra rank, you know, you can look at the Federal Assault Ship, which is also another fantastic ship to fly. 2 large, 2 medium, tons of power, great agility. It's another fantastic ship, and if you've got the money in the rank, definitely look into that. If you're looking for something a little bit bigger, I mean, there's the Anaconda, there's the Corvette. I mean, they cost way, way, way more credits, but they both are excellent in the RESs. The Anaconda is a powerhouse. You get 3 large, 1 huge, 2 medium, 2 small. You've got hard points for days, and shields can go up to the 1400 megajoules. Man, talk about some staying power. The Anaconda, fantastic. Or let's say you want to put in some Federal rank time. You can move into something like the Federal Corvette. The Federal Corvette's got ridiculous maneuverability. It's got 2 huge, 1 large, 2 medium, 2 small. It is a huge powerhouse in the RES department. Fantastic ship. So there are alternatives, although they are going to be a lot more. Alright, so it looks like the Python is wrapped up here, and I might have messed up with my timing here on the Fer-de-Lance, so it's still doing a little bit more fighting. So we're going to wait till it takes out this final ship here, and then we'll cut out. Now, just looking at this final little fight here, we've got Fer-de-Lance versus Vulture. Vulture hyper-maneuverable, but of course, you know, NPC, so it's not doing as much damage as it could. But the Fer-de-Lance can pretty much keep up with it here with PvE. And that's going to take it out here real quick. Final little ramming. Look at that. He had a turret cannon. How ridiculous. Okay, so now we're looking at the final scores. The Python comes in at 2,502,159 credits. And the Fer-de-Lance comes in at 1,997,975 credits. So the Python coming in with almost, well, just over 500,000 more credits. But that could just come down to the RNG. I think the Python's instance had a little bit more enemies going on, so I think that's probably why the score was a little bit higher. But I think they performed about the same. So to answer the question of Python or Fer-de-Lance, which one do I get? Well, I would say it all depends if you're more interested in multi-role or more interested in dedicated fighting. If you're only interested in doing RAS bounty hunting, you can't go wrong with the Fer-de-Lance. Excellent hard points, excellent power. It is a real killer and a lot cheaper than the Python. If you're interested in doing more PvE, you want to do some planetary landings, you want to do some smuggling, you want to get around the galaxy some more, I would say go with the Python. It might be a little bit trickier to learn how to fly because it's going to be a little bit more tubbier than, say, a Viper or a Vulture or a Courier or a Diamondback Scout, you know, something like that. But the Python is a fantastic ship, and if you need to do more than just fighting, I think the Python is the ship you're looking for. Alright, this has been Commander Gypsum, and thanks for watching, everybody. I do appreciate it, and I'll see you all in the black. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you thought in the comments. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to see all of my latest videos.